I don't remember having that much stuff going on when I was a kid. I just don't. And I know
Yeah.
I am lying
To be
to
fair,
myself.
Oh, but I mean, summer was
you
a
were
lot more
also
running
wild in
around.
South Dakota.
Well, I mean, weirdly, during the summer, I really didn't have that much going on because I was a farm kid, so I worked on the farm. That was what I did, and I went into town and stuff, but that was just to hang out with people. I didn't like.
I will say, doing work on the farm definitely is like a full-time thing.
Yeah, but I didn't. I mean, I didn't have like beyond a certain age. I didn't have like camps to go to and stuff, you know, uh, or I wasn't going to like the taking whatever doing some weird little activity that's like let's learn a new skill kind of thing like you know uh, there was a point beyond which that just did not happen. uh, Worked on the farm and then eventually summer stuff would or school prep would start to happen and that was what you did and then off you go. Now during school I had I was yeah it was a small country school. Well, country, it was like 200 kids in the whole high school, so everybody was in every extracurricular. Like everybody was in band, marching band. Everybody was in this other band. Everybody did everything. So everyone had a crazy extracurricular schedule, and I was no exception there. But uh, during the summer, not so much. It's not so much running around. I have no clear recollection of my summers like before I could drive, honestly. I'm sure that no, that's not entirely true. I remember haranguing my mother every single day to take us to the pool in town um, throughout the entire summer. And also the clear recollection that we never went as often as we wanted to.
It's not.
And me and my sister wanted to. So, although I say that with the other clear recollection that my sister went often enough that she dyed her hair green from the chlorine. So we went plenty, but certainly not as much as we would have liked to have gone. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. Summer's bananas. That's all I got. Anyway, so when we oh crap, I lost the picture. I need the picture back. Where did I put that little sketchy thing?
Hey, Doyce.
Yes, sir.
Did you start recording yet?
I did. I can stop because we have said nothing of any use or value as far as the game. We could just start over.
I was just gonna say I'm okay with freaky shit.
Are you back to being okay with free? Okay. All right.
Uh-huh.
All right. This is because I just chalk it up to a bad week last week.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely a bad week
All
last
right.
week.
Well, that sucks, and I'm sorry, and I should have asked where everybody's headspace was at. I will learn from that experience. Where in the hell did I lose that sketch of the? Oh, maybe dig that far back. I can't find the. Well, we'll just have to. I don't know what the heck happened to it.
We're gonna have to remember horrible burn.
Well, I'm just trying to remember the. Well, they weren't burned. That was the thing. They were. Oh, bird. Well, the bird people. Yeah. The bird people. That picture I've got somewhat handy. It was really more of a silhouette, more of an impression than anything else.
Well, we didn't get much more than an impression.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was trying to find the picture of the thing on the cliff, the structure, which I'm sure I've got floating around here somewhere, but I'm not gonna worry about it right now. Anyhow, so when we last left our crew, they were in the hallways of a structure of precursor origin. I like how I like the rather subtle and never really called out in the text slang, honestly, of as, precursor is too long to say, and we're just going to keep shortening it until we've run out of everything except for the final syllable of the word. And then,
Well, is legitimate. It is a legitimate prefix anyway. It means
Yeah.
something like a predecessor.
right.
Predecessor, primordial, platonic, ideal, original.
Which I also get, but I also like when I think of like precursor bot or something like that, it's just like it just kind of goes into it and they just keep dropping it until it's bot, So it kind of works both directions, both as the intentional like, oh, this is a prefix, or the we're just lazy and precursor is such a long word that we're just dropping everything off.
Or it's easier to say and have it mean the same thing across trade languages.
Which is, oh yes, nice simple syllable. I admire that. Admire that take too. In any case, we find ourselves in the passages of a structure, ruin, something, about which much theorizing has occurred as to, is this a structure that's modeled off of the logic of a spaceship? Is it actually a spaceship that just happens to be underwater? Who can say?
The dead people.
The dead people could probably say. Were they inclined to answer, and were anybody equipped to ask?
Well, they seem to be very chatty, so.
Well, they're certainly very active.
Existent.
They certainly seem to be, operating on a frequency. At any case, so not very far.
Not your silent dead.
Yeah, no. Our many silent dead is not how these guys apparently swing. And it's not only the spirits of these things that are not silent. It doesn't appear to be the ship, because absent any preternatural senses, Armin managed to sort of have a bit of an encounter with them. But even absent that, and just the evidence of your senses, something's going on in the ship, because the whole bloody thing is vibrating and doing stuff, and you're pretty sure you're not imagining the ghost of the ship firing weapons, which is also something that all of you would have felt, and Drifter at least immediately recognized, just in like, I know what that feeling is. That is giving me hardcore deja vu from a lifetime of being on the ship. Is Drifter the sort of person that was sort of like, how should I put this? To put it in the Expanse terminology, is he a belter? Is he a full-time spacer? Did he grow up on stations?
Not even stations. Like his family were free traders aboard ship. They literally lived and worked aboard these cargo ships that went from site to site. So
the sound of the ship is the sound of heartbeat, of Mother's heartbeat, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Funny bit of a quick funny story about that. I had mentioned last week before, that I was planning on conducting an experiment with the sort of rogue City of Heroes server, because I remembered when Kaylee was little, her encountering some of those game sounds that she hadn't heard in several years and just sort of stopping dead. And I finally had the opportunity to do that. And one of the ones that she'd be most, picking out the ones that she'd be most familiar with. And I had my fire tanker running his little fire shields and stuff that makes, I don't know if you guys have played City of Heroes. Whoosh, whoosh. Certainly the interior of Mother's womb kind of heartbeat sound, if nothing else. And I called her into the room, and she's like, she sits down and just like, what do you want? And this is playing along in the background. I said, do you hear that? And she's like, not really. Because it's just kind of tooling along. And I said, oh, that's, huh. And so I shut it off. I shut the toggles off so the sound went away, and then I turned them on, and they make a different sound when you ignite them. And it was a sound that in the current version of the software, the toggles just stay on, so you don't have to constantly turn them on like every time you zone or anything like that. They're just on all the time once you turn them on. But it was something back in the day that I would have had to have turned on all the time. When I turned them on, she sat up in the chair in my room like she had just heard somebody breaking into the house downstairs. Like that she had heard the crack of glass breaking, of a window. She just sat up like what? kind of thing. And she turns like an owl's head, like just the body stayed still and the head pivoted. What was that? Well, that was the thing I was waiting for you to hear. Oh my God, she holds up her arm, and I could see the hair on her arm standing up from across the room. It's just a very, very visceral reaction to that. And a little bit later, I was running through. I found those Tesla bots that shoot the lightning, and that particular
nice.
her mom played somebody who shot a lot of lightning bolts, and that would have been a sound that she would have heard a bunch as a wee baron as well. And I ran along until some Teslite shot lightning at me, and she shot straight up out of her chair, like stood up, like, I do not like that sound. She says, I do not like that sound. I don't know why, but I don't like it. So yeah, that is cellular memory right there. It's pretty funny stuff, because there's no way she's heard that for what? When did it close down? At least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
If not more than that. Not quite a bit more than that, honestly. I think she had to.
Memory's a funny thing.
It is, and this is lizard brain area stuff. And to actually pretend like this applies back to the game, there's a certain amount of reaction with hang on. I guess I gotta mute you for just one sec, but I'm gonna loop it back to Drifter here. All right, so the ship is making these noises and kind of humming and thrumming, and then there's a little chung 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 sound, and your body reacts before your brain identifies what's really going on. There's the flush, the goosebumps, the speeding up of the heart, the adrenaline dump in the system, because your body's just going, oh, by the way, I know enough about what's about to happen based on the sounds that just came into my brain that you're going to need this, and just hands you a big pile of adrenaline. And then a split second later, you're like, those were guns. So that's the sort of, I'm just sorting out the order of events, like all of this stuff happening, and it's like, okay, that's interesting.
I've learned to rely on my pinky sense.
Your pinky sense?
If you haven't seen My Little Pony, this doesn't make any sense.
Oh, no. I didn't. I thought that was what you were referring to, but I just wanted to make sure. Anyway, okay, cool. So a lot of stuff kind of all happening at once. Armin, are you verbal right after this happens, do you think? Or
Well,
are you still kind of kind of gasping and breathing hard, kind of like.
Well, he took it very well, as
Mhm.
we know.
He did.
So
He wrote that out very well.
Yeah, so I feel like this is more of a just like, brief moment of like a brief pause of like nothing, and then just like, oh no, I couldn't have been the only one who saw that.
That is something he says out loud. So, kind of, Drifter, do you verbalize like you're identifying this thing as like guns going off to the rest of?
Someone's shooting at something.
So Armin is saying like, oh, there's no way there's no way I was the only one who saw that. Drifter's saying something about the ship firing, which I will say, probably as soon as he articulates it, Monster immediately goes, right. Like, he already knew something was happening. But kind of just it's almost in context and really not, because your brain keeps going, but that can't be, we're underwater. Like, why would this is not the spaceship, kind of that is not an option on the drop down menu, or at least it shouldn't be.
Well, the vibration was also something that was also vibrating the key. So Monster.
So you had that level of distraction going too. So the key was reacting, the ship was going off. Armin let out kind of I would say before he actually said anything, there was probably that, suddenly waking up from drifting off. Like you're drifting off into a nap, but you have like one of those jerk your leg kind of reactions that jerk you back up out of it. And he has that kind of like a gaspy kind of thing. Immediately followed by sort of a sarcastic dismissal, playing it cool.
Oh yeah, sarcastic. We'll go with that.
We'll say sarcastic or some sort of cover up. Focusing on did anybody else get that, and not, my heart rate's currently ticking along at 171. I'm gonna go with Kay here first. Kay, what do you do first? I guess, what do you do? The only thing that doesn't go quiet fairly quickly is the key. The ship, Armin's talking a bit. Drifter's talking a bit. The ship is clearly like, there's really nothing left but the after images. The key is winding down quite a bit more slowly.
And what was shot, where it was, what direction it was going, or anything like that?
No, this would be like, being inside of the battleship when the guns go off. You're feeling the vibration of the firing through the ship, the chung 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 kind of a thing. Which, I mean, you're willing to agree with Drifter based on the pattern would kind of fit. You don't really have anything to compare it against that would contradict what he said, and he probably knows this kind of thing. But you're not like immediately going, oh yes, I've experienced this sort of thing in the past often enough to immediately recognize the pattern. But yeah, you're not really anywhere where you would know what you're looking at necessarily.
So given my abilities to take architecture and translate it into what a dwelling would look like, or things like that, having said, oh, the ship is firing, does that change my perspective of like where we are, what this looks like, both from in terms of, does this feel like a ship now to me, or can I see the shipness of it? And if so, does that lead me to think where, the control center or something important would be?
It certainly, I mean, you're headed in generally the right direction. It certainly Yeah, it's like one of those pic like the t-shirt that everybody's flogging right now. If you look anywhere, that's like the XY graph that, one direction is duck and the other direction is rabbit, depending on how you look at it. And it's the exact same picture. It's just looked at from one direction looks like a duck, and one direction. So you're seeing underwater, ancient underwater base, a more technologically focused ruin than you've seen in the past, and put into this other context, you can kind of like look at a different direction. Is it two faces or a vase? That's actually probably a better, more universal example. Suddenly you see the vase instead of the two faces. In this case, the vase ship, no, spaceship. Um, yes, this could absolutely be a spaceship. Now let me ask you a question. Archaeologically speaking, has anyone run into working spaceships before? We've talked about the drive technology being used, the hyperdrive, the gates and that sort of thing being used, but have people found ships floating around, or has this been like, we've analyzed schematics and electronic files and records and diagrams and stuff, and worked out the science, and we've got one old ship that we found floating out in the, outside of one of the, ice dwarfs that's out around like the 11th orbit outside of one of our stars, 300 years ago, and we based all of our technology off of that, plus what we learned. Or, I mean, what we've talked about thus far has been a lot of like planetary ruins.
So we haven't seen anything like this.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of asking you. I mean, let's
So we have. I think that there's always been a segment of the if you will, who has hypothesized that has to be the case, that in order for the technology to actually exist, that there's an area 52 somewhere of stuff that was previously discovered and secreted away,
and so
not anything that people know.
And that's probably, it's certainly no weirder than any of the other conspiracy theories. They were clearly spacefaring. They left the gates behind. They were clearly spacefaring, obviously. But where are the ships? And that always goes down to, well, there's this theory. They've been discovered, but the governments and the corporations are all secreting them away, and nobody's not secreting. Secreting? Whatever. Yeah. They're all hiding them away. Secreting them. I like that. They're all hiding them away. That's one theory. They took them all with them. Sure. Every single one of them. Every freaking garbage scow with hyperdrive capability, they took with them. They were that thorough. Or they've been gone for a lot longer than we thought. The gates are much more permanent. The ships are done. They decided not to they decided that they were going to return to this is a little nod for Dave and his frustration with the end of Battlestar Galactica. They decided to go native, landed on a planet, and flew all of their ships into the sun.
I hate you, and I'm going away now.
I'm just saying. There's a lot of crazy theories
Much
out
like
there.
The precursors.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy theories out there. We don't have to like any of them. So
what I'm saying is that it's anything. I mean, specifically this size, in intact is not something that's
warships. I mean, if this is an armed ship, aside from anything else, is like an order of magnitude past what people would be thrilled.
Even the cities and stuff that we've discovered are not of this, completeness.
Right. This thing is, whether or not it would ever fly again, stuff on here is working way more than Yeah, you find like these weird, like you'll find there are things that work, but they're resonant, they're way resonant, that kind of thing. It's a certain type of artifact. This is much more techy, much more, but which isn't to say that it isn't also way responsive, um, and much more pragmatic, I guess, in application. It's much, there's a certain, you could easily start a bit of a riot, if not an actual out and out like jihad, over the idea that we have verifiable proof that the have warships, because there's a not insignificant group of, and probably even ratified cults of way followers who would swear up and down until they're blue in the face that in order to be as attuned with the way as they are, to say nothing of how attuned the had to be, is to give up the idea of violence. Now they're going to have people, whatever. So the idea that not only had they not given up violence, but that were just as warlike as we were, just more advanced, puts a lot of things in perspective.
You guys, to get this ship through customs anyway, these are not lasers. They are very high-powered tractor beams.
Yes, very, very high-powered tractor beams that only push things away at high velocity in tiny atomic particles.
They push every atom of what they hit in random directions. It's not a very good tractor beam.
It's very, very poor. A lot of power. Very powerful. So yeah, a lot of that going on. The repercussions are ricocheting around your head, I would say, Kay. Just in terms of the implication, before you even really process anything that Adam's saying. Now, given the information, yeah, you could probably put this in a little bit better context in terms of where you sort of need to be, where you need to go. There's certainly a resonance between some aspects of the ship and the key, so you might be able to leverage that in order to kind of, get some sense of the place. What do you do?
So, I'm the videotaping everything that's going on and trying to capture everything that I can while I'm pondering this. And I think that was to follow the key and see where that where that's leading us. I'd like to overlay at least a little bit of human intelligence to that, to have an idea of, is it leading us towards what should be an engine room? Is it leading us towards something, what should be the command post? Is it leading us towards galley? Where is it leading us towards, in my estimation? And I'll bounce that against the guys who know more about ships.
I mean, in broad terms, you definitely seem to be going toward sort of what I would think of as the shielded heart of the ship, which would, in any kind of warship, would be the command and the command and the CIC. Again, battleship, Battlestar Galactica terms.
Okay. So then I'll probably say something like, I feel like we're moving towards the command deck. Do you think is that accurate to specifically our lovely spacefaring
Yeah, Drifter, it certainly feels like that. For Drifter, Drifter, that certainly feels like what you. That's certainly your sense of what's going. Reinforced by everything else that you're getting in terms of the shipness of this place.
That's where I would put the heart and the brain, if you will. Yeah, because that's going to be the last place to go in terms of damage. So if you need to stay safe, then you put the most important things there.
It's also going to be the more protected. Just as we're moving, we should be aware of that.
Yeah. It's in terms of internal stuff. Internal defenses, that sort of thing. Son, do you think that you would notice Armin's somewhat covered over agitation? Or rather, just the explanation was like somebody else had to have seen that. I'm asking you primarily because you're kind
Yeah.
of the one meant to babysit people a little bit. I mean, to a certain extent, you're the ones who deals with the boo boos and the alleged gunshot wounds that never seem to happen. Gosh, consarn it.
Monster does his job too well.
Yeah. Stop shooting them before they get a chance to do their round. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I think
The
I
scary
would
thing
know.
is, if you actually said that, then he probably would alter his behavior.
No.
It's
Doctor
for
says you
training,
need to,
Monster.
Doctor says that you have to shoot me first. Then I get to kill you. So go ahead. Honestly, that would be so freaking intimidating. I would just everybody would just like, no, you know what? I'm good. I'm
good. Yeah.
I'm gonna peace out. You guys just nothing about this nothing about this conversation comforts me. I'm just gonna let you have whatever it is you want.
Sorry for interrupting. You were saying something. Sorry. Apologizing to James for.
Oh, I was just answering that. I think I would yeah, I would notice and probably keep an eye out, and when a chance arises, kind of go over and check on him.
Okay. Armin, how are you? I don't know how to explain it, but how to say it any better. Like, how are you acting like when the doc comes over? Are you? I picture like two options here. If like you still kind of like a little bit wide-eyed, pulse visible on the neck, or you're trying to be like John Travolta in Grease, pretending it ain't no big thing. Like I don't.
Oh no. You did not conceive of the third option.
There's a third option.
Uh-huh. All right. It was just like see son come over. It's like just sort of like that sigh of relief, just like, huh, good. I'm hallucinating. Give me pills.
I normally give people pills to hallucinate.
hallucinate.
You've got this all in the
you
wrong
have both
order.
kinds, right? Oh my goodness, you didn't load up with both kinds.
I mean,
I was expecting to go on vacation.
Yes, and then they came and got us. Because there was things. Money was to be made.
Yeah,
I
well.
expected better of you.
Yeah, well, I expected more gunshot wounds and less hallucinations, so we're both disappointed.
Oh my God.
I'm not disappointed by more not having gunshot wounds.
Yeah, nobody. No, well, a few. I was gonna say nobody's disappointed by that, except apparently one person is. Son, do you have a thing
are
for?
atrophying.
So you can doctor someone during a job to allow them to. I don't know that there's a role involved in this. Can somebody look at this real quick? The patch.
There isn't a role.
There isn't a
We
role.
went through this when
Yeah.
I was under the weather.
Yeah, you can just. It says you may doctor somebody during a job to allow them to ignore the effects of a harm penalty.
I think there would be a check because otherwise they wouldn't call out the ability.
The ability, unless it just.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, because I mean, it makes sense. I mean, right now we're kind of in a controlled position.
You may doctor someone during the job to allow them to ignore a successful role lasts for the job. While your patient may ignore the effects of the harm penalty, it does not remove the penalty. There are still fewer boxes for additional wounds. So, I mean, son, you certainly can have something in your pack as far as this goes for.
Yeah. Here's a kind of mixture of drugs I was testing out. It
I am
should
not your
either.
guinea pig.
I mean,
Well,
do you
it worked on monsters, so
you don't call
I saw a monster eat a gun once.
you don't call it like this mixture that I've been experimenting with. You say this particular custom cocktail. That's how you sell it. That's how you sell it to Armin.
You did not equip your fine bedside manner, did you?
I don't know.
Bedside
Well,
manner. He doesn't have
I was
any.
gonna say I don't think Son actually has one of those.
I mean, theoretically.
You don't even have a
It's
bad
on
one.
the list.
Wait, does he have a? Wait, is
Yeah,
that
I
actually?
have fine bedside manner. It's one of my items.
Are you choosing to trot it out here? Because then I'd absolutely go for the custom cocktail line. I mean, it's really up to you. Does Armin warrant the fine bedside manner?
Nah, I just
Paying for things.
wait. So you say you're hallucinating?
Yes.
Describe it to me.
All right, Doctor. I saw a large
And then I stab
bird-looking.
him.
And then you what?
I stab him with the mixture.
Hypo.
I saw a large bird like.
There,
how
that's
did-
my fine bedside manner.
How did you? I want to know how you finish that sentence before you, because you probably get like another. You probably wind down 2 or 3 more words before you look down at your shoulder and go, "Hey!"
No, it was probably like, well, I saw a large bird like, ah! It's stabbing. It's not like a gentle poke.
Lovely.
I saw this bird-like creature and it went, ah!
There's my fine
Very odd
bedside
thing for
manner.
it to say.
There's a reason they kicked me out of the university.
I can see that.
This is you're going to be unsuccessful in a teaching position. I think that's been proven at this point.
Hey,
Or-
it worked.
Well, and the problem is they're actually more worried that you're going to be popular in a teaching position because there'll be more people that are acting like this, which is worrisome. Would you do me the kindness of rolling a doctor roll for allowing Armin to ignore the effects of his, what did I call it?
After images of horror.
Yeah, lovely. After images of
So
horror.
we're seeing how effective the mixture is.
Indeed, pretty much.
Ha.
Ha! I like
Guinea pig, indeed.
that.
I told you I tested it out on Monster.
That's really not a comfort. I mean,
I also tried it out on Crazy Frim. And
Real-
you know, he didn't seem all the worse for it.
That crazy backwards Prim is not who I would like my life entrusted to.
that guy and this guy are not control groups. They're the opposite of control groups.
Well, now you're the control group. Congratulations.
I swear, if this leaves a rash,
Stop.
I am
Stop
taking
being
you
such
to
a
the,
big
to the
baby.
medical board.
Yeah,
What
right.
medical board?
I don't know. I'll find one that will.
There's a wooden board
will
on
sanction you.
board that just has a little caduceus on it, and that's his medical board.
The medical board is the one I go find on the ship and beat you with if this causes a rash.
I like this quote that Bill's come up with. I like this. I need to read this.
So this is Headmaster Montag from The Secret World, who's voiced by Jeffrey Combs.
He's one
And
of my
if that-
favorite characters in that.
And he's basically playing like a very deadpan, mad scholar turned teacher. And this is who I'm now picturing Son as being. Like he's just like, yeah, it's for science. And then whatever happens next.
Wow.
Or it's for the greater good, which is even scarier.
That is. Yikes. Yikes!
However,
I say again.
in character, as Drifter watches this, hey Doc, you got any more drugs?
Yes, but they're not for sharing right now.
Well, we might need them because here's the thing. Like, I don't think that any of the controls in this place are going to respond to normal operation. So I'm thinking we might need to get into some weird kind of alternate headspace to maybe kind of connect with the ship. So just keep your stash out and we'll see what happens.
Maybe I can fall on a needle on the way.
Are you trying to tell me that we're going to have to
sounds
get?
like a good idea.
Trying to tell me you're going to have to get stoned to drive the ancient artifact?
Here, shh. Quiet, Armin. And
I usually find that getting
pass him one
drunk
of the
is
candies.
sufficient enough to to deal with these things. You don't usually have to get stoned. I mean, really, a good drunk will do it.
The next time Armin speaks, I stick one of my lollipops in his mouth.
Nice.
But Armin,
Yes.
understanding that you may be speaking around the lollipop, do you share any more of sort of what you experience now that there's a level of cool, kind of tingly, chilly distance between you and the actual experience? It's like a York peppermint patty for your brain and spinal column.
All right, it was already cold. It was already damp in here. Now I'm cold.
But in a good tingly, I mean, it's a pretty good mix. In another environment, you would be willing to revisit this cocktail, provided you had like some sours, something sour to drink. Something missing. There's a weird aftertaste. Anyway, kind of a metallic thing, really back on the base of the tongue. Are you going into any more detail, given that the experience itself is a little bit more distant from your heart rate, which is coming down?
Sure, but you're gonna have to jog my memory on this.
So it was like something was kind of rushing down the hallway. In the moment of the thing, there was a sense of like it was you're experiencing it as it was dying, and really simultaneous with the ship, from what you're able to glean around you, having sort of fired its weapons in response to something or something, but the ship did stuff, and at that same time, what you were experiencing is sort of the ship having taken an attack, and the creature, the spirit or whatever that you were intersecting with, kind of being destroyed, being killed as it was sort of overlapping with you. Unpleasant. So that was kind of the gist of it. We don't need to, I mean, honestly, just for the sake of me not having to come up with the same description again, because I don't think I remember all the words. Yeah, I mean, and the other big uptake of the thing is whatever killed it was not like a laser or radiation or something. It was basically killed with a terror bolus.
All right. So I'm going to call over to our nice archaeologist.
Did you say
So-
crawl over or call over?
Call over.
Okay,
Is
good.
like,
I was gonna say, how good are these drugs?
I thought I was gonna say I thought I heard crawl as well, but
uh-huh. Yeah. It'll
See you
be like,
later.
Drifter, Campbell, come. Is like just like get everybody together. It's like, all right, before whatever Sun stuck me with takes effect. So there were ghosts, and they were scared to death.
As a ghost?
Wouldn't we be scared to death because of ghosts?
No. What killed the ghosts before they were ghosts, when they were alien bird things, they were scared to death.
Wait, can we go back to the part where you said before the drugs take hold?
There's a couple
Do
of
I have any?
I am sure there's probably like drool coming out of one side of our mouth at this point. It's like, no.
scared, pause,
That's
to death. scared to death. Not scared to
I'm
death.
actually more interested in the alien bird thing, because I'm not sure that jogs anything in my memory already of things that I know as, potential
So I think
historic
Feathers,
aliens.
antennas, wings, also hands, but also feet. Humanoid, but with wings and a big tail, but also antennas.
all of which sounds fascinating.
Well, the drugs that I gave him shouldn't be giving him that kind of having that kind of effect.
Yeah, Son's like, okay, this may have actually happened because this should not. This is not feeling like a side effect.
The
Of the
products.
drugs.
So before I go all loopy, 2 options. Fear creature, we need to leave. Fear weapon, we need to find and sell.
We always know where your priorities are.
I mean, if nothing else proves that he's not completely stoned out of his mind and nonsensical and still definitely in his Armin mind, it's the fact that if this is a weapon, we need to figure out how to monetize it. That really kind of.
Weapons are controllable. People and creatures aren't.
I can support that. So
I have to say that immediately as he's telling about giant bird things, I'm kind of like looking down at the floor to see if there's any bird footprints or anything that.
It's definitely no immediate like signs of it. I mean, weirdly, it kind of tracks a little bit. Not weirdly. There's been theories, a lot of theories about who the were, really, if you know what I'm saying. Yes, they had interstellar travel, but there's a lot of indications that their society was not humans are, to start with humanity, social creatures. There's certainly a lot of I don't know how else to really get into it, but we're groups of primates clustering together, whether it be in trees or later in villages or anything like that. There's certain social indicators in the way that cities are structured, that any larger political organization comes together, is there's a sort of a premise of we're going to be stronger together than apart. And from what has been able to be constructed, there's certainly some indicators from the ruins and stuff that have been recovered from the that while that had happened, and while there were certainly population centers and there were certain gatherings, there's a lot more indication that happened out of necessity and not out of instinct. Like, so that would indicate, like, at some base level, they're more loners, sociologically speaking. And people have, talked about, you talk about like the evolutionary series and, what kind of animals with whom we are actually familiar might have then, assuming a rise to sentience and an uplifting, might have behaved that way. And there's, various theories about that. Cats are frequently put out. That's a lot of people's pet theories. Everyone loves a good space cat girl, right? So that's humans like the cat theory because generally speaking, not. But then of course they turn around and say, well, there's packs of cats and Wookiee tigers then, and blah blah blah, and more loners, and so which creatures are loners? Hunting birds tracks for that, sociologically speaking. Like raptors, vultures, condors, that the hunting birds type of. So not necessarily that specifically speaking, but that as an evolutionary link, stepping stone thing, yeah, that could work. Far more so than a lot of the other species. I mean, excepting Monster here, about whom we know, but certainly they worked in village groups and stuff like that. So from a sociological point of view, Monster isn't that remarkable in terms of that. The Memish are very sociologically organized, like into self-defending groups. In different ways, certainly than, but oceanic schools as an evolutionary step is very clear, both in their appearance and their behavior, but certainly in their behavior and their whole sociological structure. And that doesn't track to the Earth. That's a whole different thing. So yeah, I mean, aside from anything, I'm not starting a wheel on the a clock on this or anything like that, but. And certainly, this wouldn't necessarily be the first time anybody's ever offered up the idea that it may be, what if raptors, if this kind of thing, could be this, could be that, throwing out a bunch of different ideas, and the idea that they came together into larger sociological organizations later on, not out of instinct, but out of necessity, just because, we need more of us to be able to accomplish this thing that we need. So it's much more like mutual protection and a lot more like long-lasting agreements and treaties kind of a thing. I don't want to pull in yet another sci-fi thing, but, more Klingon-y, I guess, to a certain extent. The idea of like a bunch of like lone warriors that eventually have to start working together, even though they still keep, like sort of chesting against each other and, displaying, dominance type stuff.
Well, and
Anyway,
you could have a similar structure if you had a strong family too.
sure. I mean, it isn't to say you wouldn't ultimately end up in the same place, but there's just certain. I can get into them. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but there certainly are. He talks about, and it was the bird thing that spun you off on this thing, and you say, yeah, but there's flocks that go for self defense, but there's also you got your loner type thing. Anyway, so.
Anyways, we were going down this road, so.
It would kind of you would ask kind of like what that would sort of lead you to think, and yeah, it could he could absolutely be having a memory flashback to an Ur species. Certainly nothing else that tracks in this in terms of that appearance or the impression that he gives doesn't track with anything else, any other major species that's been active in this area. To the best of your knowledge.
That's interesting because like my first thought was not that it was Ur, but it was somebody fleeing the Ur.
Which certainly could have been.
Anyways.
So it could be either. It could be either or. Could be both. Could be neither. Who can say? Okay, so Doc has got Armin feeling a lot better. A lot of information to track here. What do you guys collectively? I mean, the way onward is forward. You're kind of already going the right direction. You can go that way with a little bit more confidence. You can go there with a lot more awareness of potentially what you might find in terms. You start thinking of it in terms of a ship. what you might have to worry about in terms of defenses, whether or not any of that stuff is still active, or what exactly you need to worry about. Thoughts?
For me,
Yeah, the command center.
Onward Ho.
Onward ho.
Yeah.
Onwards over. All right. I'm going to ponder this a second because I don't want the next barrier that might take us a period of time to get through to be a door.
No. It can be a door. We just need to get done with it in like 5 minutes.
Okay. In that case,
There's a giant door in front of you.
plonk.
I mean,
Uh,
it's been a door for the past few games. Why not keep up the trend?
This is
Monster, muscle it.
Yeah.
We have a personal connection to this door.
You can't take this door away from us now.
Okay, I can't take the door away from you now.
You need to comfort and support it.
So, yeah, okay. Okay. Moving forward through the thing, you can expect, the mind conjures up lots of risks, many of which fall into the idea of, like long dormant defense turrets, things of that nature, booby traps, that sort of thing. But with that said, if this is a combat ship, this is the problem I've always had with, your typical dungeon crawl that's meant to be inside of somebody's castle where people live. You don't booby trap the hallway between the bedroom and the privy. You just don't. Because, there isn't a freaking pit trap in there. I mean, there is if you stumble into the privy wrong, but there's not a pit trap because at 2 o'clock in the morning, Lord Dundersnatch is not going to remember there's a pit trap. So this is whatever it is, it's meant to be, pretty straightforward and easy to use. You're not, unless it's all hands on deck for point-to-point defense inside the ship because we're being boarded, there's not internal defense turrets probably activated.
I will instead suggest the origin of Stalker, which is roadside picnic. The idea that there may be strange devices in here
that just
whose function seems intuitive to their original users.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember the book or whatever, the idea. So, it looks like a bucket, and anything that's dropped to the bottom of the bucket is immediately vaporized. There's not even dust. And nobody knows what it is. Is it a really, really efficient garbage can? Is it an execution device? Is it is it some sort of email? Who knows? I think the guy who has it's using it as the garbage can, the garbage can idea, not really knowing what the other end's coming out if it isn't that.
The gods must be crazy as well.
Yeah. Who knows what it is. So given that there's potential risk, before we get to the inevitable door, I think we are skulking. I feel like proceeding carefully through the dangerous environment is a skulk. Which is to say, moving along.
That's never gone bad before.
If we're doing that to avoid traps, then yes,
moving along carefully with all senses alert for danger, whether that's actually traps or air quote traps. In the sense of, there's a scanning device here that's meant to scan retinas that can take, 6 times more light. So, this is actually a blinding laser now that operates at head height.
So, I'll say, sounds like a team action.
Yes.
If no one else wants to, I'll lead.
And I also have experience with this sort of thing. And history of
That's true. As
Indiana Jonesing places.
I was just gonna say, I can eat the stress.
Okay.
There's a okay. Let me look at K. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. So unless everybody gets, boy, I may have jinxed it there. Unless everybody gets nothing but a 3, K would be okay as well. Armin,
Have
yeah.
a skulk? Does anybody else have skulk?
I think
I
everybody.
have a skulk.
I've got a point
Okay.
of
I have
skulk.
skulk.
Anybody have more than a point of skulk? How's that?
In this case, it doesn't matter much in terms of who's in charge because it's just everybody rolling and you're taking your kind of counting your successes and looking for the 6s and that sort of thing. Monster has
I've got 2 skulk.
Monster has a bit more skulk. So honestly, I mean, Monster sort of being a little bit in front also tracks, just in terms of being the one who can soak the most punishment.
Yeah,
Although
Monster can't soak the most stress.
that's
I was
true.
going to say, at
Yeah.
the moment.
At the moment, Monster's a little bit on edge.
Yes.
Armin's cool as a
Right.
cucumber right now. He's like, no, I got this. You guys just,
Yeah, Armin in his drug state most likely would take charge. And, well, let's face it, are we going to need to talk our way through a command center of dead people?
Probably not. We'll give Armin this one, and then that leaves K with some stress to deal with whatever you guys find in the CIC.
Yep.
How's that sound?
Sure.
Sounds good.
How's that sound to K? Because this is
Sorry, I had my mic up. Yes, that's fine.
okay. All right. So I think everybody does. I think everybody has skulk, which is nice.
Risky.
That hasn't stopped us from messing it up in the past.
It is risky. I think we've explored. Margie, you're miking up. I think we've explored the potential risks here. Bill illustrated some options pretty brilliantly. Largely in this case, we're talking about things that you may or may not understand that aren't going to function the way you expect them to function. I'm not talking about a hallway full of chompers for no apparent reason. Thank you, Galaxy Quest. But just technology that is probably not immediately inimical
Alien?
to the original owners, but might be terribly distressing to all of you in an explosive fashion. So that's kind of the risk out there, is that there's going to be some still functioning aspects of the ship that are harmful, whatever that happens to be. So there's the risk there. We'll say risky.
Standard effect?
Yeah. I'm thinking about that. Yeah, we'll say standard, just in terms of like getting into where you'd be. So yeah, risky standard. It's a lot of thought to get it to its default. So everybody's rolling the dice that they're rolling. Armin rolled his 2.
Yep.
Can you give yourself? Can you generate? Is it stress on yourself or just what everybody else rolls?
I think I do. I don't know that. I can look that up while everybody else is rolling.
Why don't you look that up? Because Monster just gave you some stress.
Good.
But luckily, at least Drifter can be like,
Good job, Bill.
dang, man.
Sun was hitting up some of the drugs while he was making up the cocktail for Armin.
Quit licking the needle.
So you were the control group. Now I understand.
You think I would,
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Thank God. I'm just going to say thank God for Drifter and Armin soaking up.
Including my own. So
Do you generate stress on yourself as well?
yes, I do.
Oh, that's interesting.
2, 3, 4.
So let's say,
All
yeah,
right.
hooray for Armin taking all the stress there. So there's more than a few
Yeah. Hold on. Do you mind if I?
Oh, no,
narrate my
by
own?
all means.
So I feel like this is one of those things where Armin, oblivious to everything going on around him, is just like right down the corridor. And as people are doing it, people are like yanking him back away from walls and all sorts of stuff. And he's just like, would you stop that? It's like, you are ruffling up my nice shirt.
I know what I'm doing, and he steps back to like make a big gesture, and as the sort of mind scanner runs thankfully on an empty patch rather than, trying to map his brain to a different pattern. Um, all kinds of ugly there as far as that goes. A regular success on a risky standard advances the clock 2, I think. Am I right? I think I'm right.
Uh,
It's either 2 or 3.
I was gonna say,
Because the
are we
crit,
doing like an extended clock going through this thing?
I've got the clock for infiltrating the Memish ruins. That's up there next to Mem.
Okay.
And I think it's probably 2. I mean, that's the job as such. I think it's 2 to get in there. It's either 2 or 3, and in any case, the clock's not closed.
I was gonna say it's if I remember correctly, it's like limited as 1, standards 2,
Right.
great is 3.
Right. There you go. And then the crit like adds 2 to that. Gotcha.
It's like extraordinary effect or whatever it's called.
Right. Okay, so that moves you along fairly well, and you get some sense of as you get closer to the center of the ship, there's more of that. Weirdly, as you get closer to the center of the ship, the technology becomes more of that. What's the word I'm looking? I guess streamlined is maybe the best way of thinking of it. It looks a lot more alien as you get, a lot more akin to the kind of technological interface that you'd expect from some alien artifacts, some of the artifacts. And you have to wonder if it's the reason that the artifacts that have been discovered, that get distributed or found and studied and that sort of thing, and the reason they've survived is because they're that sort of higher order stuff. Maybe they've always had that, lower end simplistic stuff, but the times frame, it gives you a different idea of maybe the time frame that's elapsed there. If that stuff all falls away, if it all becomes non-functional garbage and trash, largely, certainly unrecoverable, if not, in fact, unrecognizable, maybe there's a lot of Vertec that's kind of that slightly less impressive because it's a little bit closer to the tech that you're already using kind of stuff that you see sort of in the outer parts of the ship. As you get closer to that, that core that's, it's super advanced and at the same time has all the structural complexity of a rock, or a tuning fork. It's really hard to, well, I should say it's really hard to screw up a tuning fork. You can obviously come up with some pretty, easy answers to how you would screw up a tuning fork that involve like using a mallet. But aside from that, it's kind of hard to screw up a tuning fork. And if the tuning fork can also fly a ship, then, that tech lasts. Anyway, so you do get a sense of that. And you also get a heightened sense of way presence for those of you who are sensitive to such things. Not like anything clear, trackable unless you really like focus on it, but there's certainly that kind of, I don't know that Monster would have necessarily experienced this very much, but Kay, you certainly have. There's ruins where you can feel you're in not to sound too mystic about it, but places of power. You really can't help, and you've always been slightly puzzled by the people who are archaeologists and not sensitive to that. Like, what was your draw? Why do you do this job? Like, if you don't sense anything special here, like, why do you even find this interesting? And it's kind of, you never really vocalize that because obviously they have their own drives and reasons for being there and stuff like that. But it's pretty impressive when you're in that space, and you get more of that the closer you get to the center of the ship. Monster, you're getting. I get this every so often. Dilbert, I think, probably first made the joke of the idea of phantom pager syndrome, where you hear you feel the vibration of your phone and or pager, and you realize it's not in your pocket, you're holding it, but you still feel that down on your leg, either because of the cloth is rubbing in a certain way, or maybe you're just imagining or something like that. You can't tell as you get closer to the center if the key is responding, or you are and you're projecting, or you're just imagining it. Unless you want to fumble the key out and actually like see if it's actually responding. So I'm just giving you an idea of all of the.
Actually, that doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Just to get the key out and see what's what as far as that goes.
Maybe I'm encountering another door that needs key.
Could be. You're pretty sure now. You're pretty sure that the key is. I mean, actually, getting it in your hand, you're really quite certain that it's not a. It's certainly not resonant the way that it was previously, but you're quite certain that it is reacting. It's got kind of a low grade hum. It is, for lack of a better word, activated. Not doing a thing, but it's like on. The little LED Bluetooth light indicator is blinking rapidly, waiting for a handshake. No, I'm kidding. But that kind of like there's a sense of waiting readiness. Not like I am currently doing a thing, but I am prepared should a thing need to be done.
Huh.
Or to put it in monster terminology, it's not about to pounce, but its ears are pricked up and it's listening very carefully to the jungle around it.
It's not ready to do the butt wiggle just yet, but it's getting there.
But it's like, I do believe there's something nearby that I should be aware of, and I'm going to be aware of it right now. That's all. Just aware. Just. You can obviously. So you're coming up. So you would say, certainly Drifter would, without any doubt, that you're at the big doors to the CIC, like the heavy duty security type of things, that in the event of attack, battle, whatever, would be in lockdown. And they certainly seem to be. There's some light indicators still on, which is great. There's power in the area, but there's no response whatsoever to.
That's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, it's awake, it's aware, it's active, but it is definitely not opening just for you walking. It's not on like grocery store door, just open when people walk up kind of mode at all. But you do have a slightly vibrating key in your hand. Could be an attune roll. Certainly would be an attune roll to kind of get this thing and see if there's anything you could do with that. Or
There's not a giant keyhole in the middle of it.
there is not a giant keyhole shaped like the
Probably
arrow.
just as well.
Yeah, that would be.
Someone would tell me I should not do it.
Might not get it back. But
Hold on to it very tightly.
certainly could. Any use of the key in this environment would probably be an attune roll. I'll throw that out there. What do you want to do collectively?
I think we should
Grab one prong of
do
it,
that
hold the other prong out to K, and say, "Make a wish."
You just cut out for me, Joyce.
Oh, I was like, you grab like one prong of the thing and hold the other prong out to K and say, "Make a wish."
You make a wish. No, that might not get back. Yeah, I'm thinking. Monster's brow furrows, and he looks at the others and says, "Key appears to be active, if not activated." I'm wondering if would be key that might help open this door.
Well, it hasn't been good for anything else yet.
I mean, take that as a go ahead from Armin, I guess. Monster seems to be, I guess, soliciting opinions on the whole what to do next.
Well, unless Armin puts his bank statement into the door and that opens it, yeah, I'd say you're right.
I can certainly try that. I would like to consort with the door.
It still would be an attune roll. As much as Armin was like, yeah, he's, Armin sidling, sidling up to the door and kind of stroking it gently and going, "Come on, baby, I don't need to see that.
So he's gonna lean on the door.
Oh God.
Oh.
Oh. I got a T-shirt. I don't know if anybody saw. I put it up on social media a couple days ago. I got a T-shirt for Father's Day that says "Dad jokes." I think you mean rad jokes. And I held it up for my son, who covered his eyes with one hand and, still covered, said to the open room, "Even the shirt itself is a dad joke." And then kind of let out this long-suffering, like, pained sigh. I mean, he's not wrong, but he said it like it was a bad thing. I didn't even have to buy it for myself. It was great. Anyway.
All right, Dave. Open that door.
Okay. So I guess I will do an attune. Boy, I really don't want to take. I don't want to take any stress here. So.
Kay could help. Certainly, and do an assist, which she doesn't even need to roll for. You can just take a point of stress and assist. Kay. Are you guys? I think your attune are both kind of the same, so there's not really much leverage one or the other.
Mine attune is 2.
Yeah, mine's only 1.
So maybe, I mean,
yeah, I take the lead.
I
got more strikes available than he does.
That's also true. I mean, Monster, you have some attunement role here, but when it comes right down to it, when the rubber hits the road, when it comes to this wonky hijinks, Kay might be the best, and you can certainly help, but that's a point of stress as opposed to whatever else might happen.
Yeah. So, that might be best.
So, why don't we do it that way?
Okay. So that's 2 dice for Kay, a point, an extra dice to roll, for assistance from Monster for 1 stress to Monster.
Does it help that I have a very fine Aleph key?
It absolutely help. Oh boy, what would help with that? Actually, I'm going to say this is the weird help. It doesn't give you an extra dice, but you don't take any stress, Monster. It's remarkably easy to lean into whatever it is Kay's doing with the key. Which is to say, Monster doesn't take stress, but Dave does.
Fair enough.
Armin, you're helping?
Yep.
How are you helping? Tell me
with
more.
The drugs I'm on, I'm one with every.
So I mean, everybody. I just want you to imagine everyone's seen that. Well, okay, not everybody. Probably Margie has it, but everyone else may have seen. I don't know. I'm gonna project an aura of innocence around James and his first year in college, and say, we're gonna rule James out here. Most people can imagine the heavily drunken partygoer who, while you're in the restroom, comes sort of shuffling in. I'm not going to say staggering, but shuffling very heavily in, pauses to take the area in and assess the situation, shuffles up to one of the urinals and leans into the situation literally by like kind of way too heavily slapping their hand on the wall, kind of not super hard, but just more than you need to against the wall to really lean into that urinal experience. So I picture in this situation, you've got Kay who's kind of holding the key at the base and also along one side, and Monster who's sort of gently holding it on the other side and closing his eyes, and Armin who just kind of shuffles up and looks at the two of you and then reaches out and grabs hold of that sucker on a spare of his and kind of mutters, "Let's do this." In that sort of, I'm drunkenly stepping up to the urinal because I know what I'm doing in this situation. So sure, take a point of stress, Armin,
I have.
and throw that in. The key is not helping you attune. But yeah, Monster, yeah, you lean in. So that gives you K without doing anything else, 4 dice to kind of
Not roll poorly on.
not roll poorly with. Gambit, there's a couple dice floating around still. I think one's already been spent, but there are at least 2 Gambit dice floating around. I'll have to check because I think
They're on the ship sheet.
Yeah, they're on the ship sheet. There's still 2. Wait. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. There's still 3. There's still 3 Gambit left. So
Yep.
you can certainly do that. This is risky standard. The risk is inside the CIC. And this is not a for sure thing, but the atmosphere is potentially different and harmful. So that's the risk that's there, and that risk is going to lead to, for all intents and purposes, like harm being visited upon the group at large if it ends up becoming a situation. Like if we're talking anything other than a 6, a full success, then that risk will come out in the form of harm to the crew.
Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah.
To the crew.
Oh no.
Whatever will we do?
If only we had a Stitch with us of some kind. Anyway.
So actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and use the Gambit
Okay.
on that. You said risky?
It is risky standard, and you'd be rolling then with that 5 dice. I'm watching the second hand to see if we get through this in 5 minutes. So yeah, you're rolling 5.
Okay.
We're past that.
Attune.
Are we past 5 minutes? This is the door. This was just the door, though. Just for the door portion. I'm not talking about all the weird stuff leading up to it.
Nope,
So is that's a total of 3 at bonus dice?
3 bonus dice. Yep. 3 bonus dice in total.
Here you go.
Look at that beautiful 6. That beautiful 6.
My own die. All the rest of you guys are just sharing in the drug.
So you're saying that we didn't summon
Monsters
again.
Monsters 4 was a success. A mixed success, but a success. Armin's contribution, the Gambit's contribution, somewhat
He's
less.
peeing on his shoes.
Yeah, somewhat. Not.
A little bit. That would be a 1.
We might
a little bit dribble.
I say we might.
No.
We're taking the urinal analogy a little bit further than I intended.
No, I'm serious. They're really good drugs. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I am a drugged out dude trying to explain to a very capable woman her own job. I'm mansplaining it to her.
I have to share because you just reminded me of it. First, I'll let James say whatever James is about to say.
I was going to say that I have been on an archaeology dig where there was a guy who's sitting there basically mansplaining the entire 2 weeks. So,
wow.
Where did they dig up that old fossil?
Oh God. A couple days ago, I think my wife must have told me about this, but somebody was like, she was recounting this observation that proof positive that God was a woman, because everything that she had said had to be every man who'd encountered it felt that they in the first several thousand years felt that they needed to explain it. And that's what the entire Bible is proof that God's a woman, because it's a bunch of men trying to explain what she'd said in the first place. So a little bit of amusement. I thought it was funny. Probably delivered better the first time. Anyway, so the door goes up. The portal goes up, but not in a like pulled back up into the, well, it's still pulled back up into the wall kind of thing, but it really, yeah, it kind of folds up in a way that doesn't really, actually, no, I know exactly what it reminds me of. If you'll remember, I'd originally described the Aleph key as being like many, many hundreds of thousands of fine layers of metal that would, if you could just figure out how would unfold, like the whole thing is in some way, shape, or form, like almost imperceptible origami, like metal origami. And you see a hint of that in the door kind of pulling up out of the way. It really kind of folds back and into itself as it draws back. There is a very slight shift in air from the hallway, from the CIC out into the hallway. A slight pressure shift. Stale. It's definitely been sealed for a very long time, but not a very strong exchange, which is part of avoiding the risk here. It's a very big room. It's very open. It is definitely, I mean, instantly, for even the most non-spaceship conscious among you, most really instantly identifiable as a CIC of the type that's buried deep in, battle-ready ship. So it's not a cockpit kind of layout. It's a circular kind of thing where it doesn't matter where the front is because we're not looking. The front is the center kind of deal.
Not looking out any windows, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're not looking anywhere. There's no front. It's just wherever the displays are and that sort of thing. Around the outer walls, there's grooves, I guess, for lack of a better, word, that are kind of weirdly reminiscent of, like, say, stasis pod type of thing, but without the doors, like that. You would imagine somebody laying into them in some way, shape, or form.
Acceleration couches?
Sure, but there's nothing really there holding them, no straps or anything like that, and there's nothing there. In the center of the room, I mean, there's other stuff going on, but it kind of focusing on the parts that are immediately going to draw the eye. In the center of the room, and I'm going to just see if I can't do what I would do if this were a table here. I'm just going to make a new page, and we'll drag everybody else over here real quick, and it's going to be super ugly, but we'll make it work. We'll kind of go like that, and like that, and like that.
So these aliens use non-Euclidean geometry. That's why the room is going to look like this. It's okay.
Yeah, that's why. So this is very, very sketchy, obviously. Okay. So in the center of the room, Margie's actually call out to acceleration couches, kind of draws this into mind. Actually, I think this might be more like 3 instead of 4, but we'll let 4 stay. That's the first thing that comes to mind. They're larger than would be comfortable for any person, really.
A giant chicken creature might really enjoy it.
Possibly. I mean, they're certainly bigger, and you can in the center like platform here, you've got like there's definitely a thingy, and the some sort of control device, something along those lines. And when the door opens, the Aleph key that 3 of you are touching at this point in time, definitely the resonance picks up a notch, and is answered by a resonance in the center of the room. So if the entrance were here, and I'm actually further quite a bit down the map, so you guys may need to scroll to actually see where I'm sketching. But the answers were here. This couch here is occupado. Who would be
You?
Kay's first thought here, and I'm going to just have you vocalize this as part of avoiding the risk that's inherent in this room, is everybody needs to put on rebreathers before we go one step further. And also don't touch anything, especially that, pointing at the couch.
A juicy corpse.
No. Your concern here is that given the feel of the air that came out, it's probably wildly desiccated. It seems to match in very broad terms, and actually in a weird way, it's quite easy to sort of spot. It seems to match in broad terms sort of Armin's description of what he perceived for the thing that he intersected with.
That's the guy.
Somewhat bird-like. I mean, it's not the. I mean, it may or may not be the guy, but it's definitely
Guy.
that guy's cousin kind of thing. But the sense of feathers around the thing, the sort of beakish bird-like, somewhat, certainly things trailing down. But it's also, just given the age of the thing, if it's been here since the site's been on, and the average age of any of the Earth stuff, open air. You're honestly astonished that even the slight air change from the door opening didn't cause this thing to immediately disintegrate into powder. And it'd be bad for a whole host of reasons, the most immediate which of being your own personal health. So, yeah.
And just think of the loss of the science. Come on.
Yeah, but I mean, you honestly, at this point, couldn't even imagine how to get. Well, you don't know without figuring out, but you don't know even what's from anything other than like videography. You don't know how much study you can even make of this thing, because honestly, you don't know if you can touch it without it just disintegrating. Just in theory. I mean, given the amount of time, it's practically, well, I'm sure there's any number of movies that you can think of, and probably somebody's already finding it. But the whole idea of somebody that's like burned away to ash, and then as soon as you touch them, they just sort of like poof, like they just kind of collapse. And that's immediately what your mind goes to. Is like, if I touch this thing, it's just gonna dissolve. Like just collapse. It's only the stillness of the air.
Kind of like the idiots who tried to unroll the scrolls that they found in Herculaneum.
Yeah.
Ah! Sorry. Don't mind me.
Angry archaeological raging in the background.
Oh, yes.
Which isn't to say that you can't like do videographic study of the thing and get that. So you've got that, and you have.
said that I just have the impression we're not going to have the leisure time to follow up on this in any significant fashion.
Well, don't know if, I mean, how much time would you need? And then the centerpiece here, if you guys can see the ping, and I think you're on the right map, aren't you? Yeah. Something, there's like a sort of a taller than chest, so call it collarbone height for you guys, plinth, upon which seems to be inserted into kind of a slot on the top. Who's the top? Probably Monster. Monster. Monster probably. So you can probably see it most clearly. Something that looks honestly not identical, but in design certainly a we'll call it part of the matching silverware set to the key that you're holding in your hands, and it certainly seems to be reacting. Your eyes, there's a certain amount of concern, okay, just in the back of your mind. It's like if that thing starts humming any louder, that's going to make the thing collapse. Which may be overstating it somewhat, but certainly. And there's other active. There's some. Not, I wouldn't call them screens, but there's certainly active panels in the room. What they're actually active with is an entire career's worth of study per panel. So yeah, this is a unspeakable treasure trove, even if you take the key out of the equation, the second key. Take the key out of the equation and you have the thing is completely non-functional. You have in terms of just shifting the thing, an incredibly dangerous thing to try to sell on a market. But God, even the finder's fee is for shifting it to, academic / governmental representation, that sort of thing, is going to be ridiculously valuable for you guys. And that's kind of where we are right now. So what do you do standing in the doorway with, pulling on rebreathers and looking around the place?
I think we found another key.
Oh, great. We won't be able to sell this one either, looks at Monster.
But there is a whole lot of other stuff that is not a key here.
There's an incredible fortune right in front of you. State you can see this.
Right. Somebody put down the beacon so that we can lay claim to this stuff.
So I'm inferring from what Armin is saying that your instinct here is go the legit route, like everything public, everything above board, everything really kind of as loud as you can do it. And is that, first of all, is that accurate? Because if so, I mean, I'm 100% on board with that. I just want to make sure that that's kind of the point. Everybody got real quiet all of a sudden.
That's kind of waiting to hear what Armin said.
Oh.
Was that the intent there?
Yeah. Me as the player says, if you guys want to make sure nobody finds out about any of the keys, go ahead and grab one of them before we do anything.
Oh yeah, I mean
it's kind of a given.
But in terms of, if you guys are trying to figure out the key stuff, keeping the key kind of goes without saying. But honestly, there's so much other stuff here that's not good. Like, hey, was there anything else here that was also valuable? Because literally the entire academic community is going to lose their collective shit when they find out about this.
So I guess my question is, given the competitive nature of my industry, given the government interference, sort of what are the risk rewards of actually declaring this site? What would we have to do to maintain our ownership, that sort of thing, versus taking a few things and trying to find it?
Well, let's break this down realistically. You got here with assistance. And if he hasn't already called his friends, as soon as you walk out of here with stuff that seems pretty saleable, like you try to do this a little bit at a time, he will. So unless you kill him, which I'm not ruling out, but unless you kill him, word will get out.
Wow, you went dark really quick.
I'm just saying, and I'm not saying, I'm just saying that's what would be required to keep it between you guys. Is first of all, it has to only be between you guys, and right now it is not. But right now, all he's seeing is a big rock outcropping that you guys crawled into, and he doesn't know what the hell's in here. So he's not You know, he's going to get his cut. He's going to get paid. Maybe eventually he'll call somebody. He's probably got that in the back of his mind anyway. But it's not like he's probably like going, "Oh, they've discovered a spaceship. I know stuff is happening now. I'm going to call people." That was one of the risks early on, but you guys bypassed it, so it doesn't really come up. Anyway, he's playing it straight, or he doesn't trust his friends, or both. So there's that. Shifting this. Unless you live down here. Now, even if you live down here, it is you're talking about years.
That was my impression.
Yeah,
So
there's just so much, and honestly, a lot of this is outside your wheelhouse. I mean, because you're talking about archaeological stuff, but then on top of that, you're talking about just determining, is this a ship? Maybe it isn't a ship. It could be modeled on a ship. I need, you need a second degree in the like start in advanced like grade starship design just to figure out what the fuck you're looking at in some of these cases. And yeah, then you can kind of leverage Drifter, but I mean, really, you're always kind of hacking at this thing. It is so big, not physically speaking. I mean, it is big, but it's such a there's so much to it that from an archaeological just study point of view, I mean, the best way to bypass that Area 52 risk is to just go as loud as you can, go as public as you can, go as absolutely innocent face, straightforward. We found this. We were looking for something much, we were just sort of having a joyride. Something looked curious, and look what we tripped on. Oh, there's a finder's fee. Well, all my stars and garters. I'm just glad that I can advance the, education.
well, and in me doesn't want to have the knowledge lost.
Yes, and
Want to do that anyways. So
Also, probably it would not be healthy for us to.
Well, trying to keep on
not
to
go
yourself.
big in public.
What's that?
It might not be healthy for us to not go big in
Yeah,
public
I mean,
because, if the only way for us to keep it secret is to do away with the pilot, sooner or later someone's going to find out we know about this, and then the only way to keep it a secret is to do away with us.
yeah, and
So-
you guys are relatively. I shouldn't even say relatively. You guys are tiny fish. Small, let's say small fish. Your best and closest ally are also small fish.
I feel like just to throw something out there, this might be a good idea to, I don't know, get a payday for the finder's fee.
Yeah, which will
off of this.
be significant.
And possibly
you have some control over who gets ownership of it, so that we can both benefit financially as well as academically.
Well, I don't know about the academical part, but I do know who I would sell it to.
Oh, I'm very curious about that.
Starsmiths Guild.
I am.
Aren't we pissing them off?
Yeah, I mean you are, but
I think you mean we were.
well, I mean
that's what I would prefer right now.
you could definitely get on the good side. They would be incredibly suspicious. They're
I was about to say, I can even sway, or not sway is the skill, but I could sway this into a thing to make them slightly less suspicious.
I mean, that's all fine and good. There is a chance, and I'm just pointing this out because Kay would necessarily have objections, is that this would disappear down a Starsmiths Guild shaped oubliette if they get their hands on it.
Warship Guild has, sort of legitimate science side to their
Oh,
work.
they absolutely do.
You just have to connect it to you need to make it public enough so that
Everybody knows it exists, and they can't just disappear it.
They're connecting into the public side, which wants to have a clean public face. For them to,
So you
I
lay.
feel like that could still piss him off.
Well, yeah, but they can't be publicly pissed off about it. They have to smile and nod and shake hands for the cameras.
Yeah, it's when the cameras aren't rolling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to be fair, but I mean,
we can make it so it doesn't look like we did it intentionally to exempt from them from doing that.
so
Part
I'm,
of how the game
I'm a
is.
bit more worried they're going to look at it and say, there should be a key sitting here. Did you
Well-
guys see a key?
well that
what?
oh no.
Oh
I mean,
no, Mr. Starsmith Guild.
we have no idea what you're. I mean,
Well, yeah.
we opened the door, realized what we found, and backed slowly away.
Maybe it's under the body.
Yeah, go ahead and touch that. And honestly, there's going to be so many other influential factions that are clamoring for their piece of this that even if the Starsmith Guild is going to be able to leverage it, that's a good political move on their part. But there's lots of people who, I forget the publicity of it, won't let that just disappear.
The other thing that I was thinking of along those lines is that,
You broke your.
well, yeah, no, I was pausing to think how
Okay.
I was phrasing this. That while their first inclination may be, let's put it in Area 52, they have to realize that they're still going to gain the most by having it, even if it is public.
Oh yeah, they get the bragging rights on this, and what better?
Well, and they may not lose all of it, but they could lose a significant piece.
Certainly, yeah. Okay, so the idea here is to publicly lay claim. So you get your finder's fee, or not even that, but you get your you sort of get your finder's fee, your locator's fee. You won't necessarily that's just sort of, and so the scam.
We're on a word that is,
So the scam here is that you lay down your finder's fee, or you lay down your buoy, your beacon, claiming your finder's fee as like sort of scouts, archaeologists, whatever. But the beacon you lay down, this is the angle. You lay it down on behalf of the Starsmiths Guild. So the idea is you lay claim, and it's for the we found it, but we were just checking out a lead as freelancers for the Starsmiths Guild. So since we were acting on their behest, we'll take the finder's fee, but really this is theirs. We're just doing it for them. And there's going to be this moment of interstellar dead silence as the Starsmiths Guild looks at you and blinks twice across several systems, and then goes, "Yes, and well done." Checks notes. Mr. So and so, whatever your name is. So yeah, that's the angle, is like we're going to lay the beacon down, but we don't lay it down as independent schmucks 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, but at the behest of.
So I'm sure that there is. I mean, given that I am a certified archaeologist, I'm sure that there is freelance contractors that are kind of permanently out there for just this sort of thing. Reference as part of this.
I mean, the process is really quite clear. You kind of program in. I mean, if you have like a beacon claim, part of it is an actual literal beacon for when you're physically close enough to get the signal, which is going to have to be pretty close considering you're underwater and they aren't necessarily designed for that kind of thing. But you're going to have that kind of thing handy. That's not a difficult thing. You can actually if needs be, you can take a comm device with the right app installed and turn it into a beacon if you don't have an official one handy. It works. It's a recognized thing. There's
no. What I was saying is that they're sort of the Galactic Bulletin Board.
Yes, you still part of part of putting on the beacon is the official sort of registration. So you drop the beacon, but you also shoot in and say beacon established, these locations, and it goes out to the official registry.
But I'm saying in specific to the Starfinders Guild, they probably have, a permanent notice on the bulletin board that says, we are interested in these items,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So by saying that we did it as freelance for them, we can actually kind of reference a standing contract that's an open contract.
Right. To be, payment to be determined based on the value of the thing, and there's sort of a, sliding scale. Everything's relative kind of thing. Some of the stuff that's in there is the kind of thing that you put in as the. I'm immediately reminded of. I don't know how. Well, I know Bill has seen the Helga animation series that's on Netflix, but there's the race of elves in there are very into contracts, and one of the little clauses in the contracts that makes a contract null and void is to have the contract burned by the fire of a lindworm, and they're like, oh, that's a good loophole. No, we put that in all of them. Lindworms are terrified of paperwork anyway, and they're very, very rare. It's just in there as a way to potentially get a so there's clauses in these contracts that say that like certain things are automatically this valuable because nobody's ever found one. It's, you just put it in there on the off chance. It's really just in there as boilerplate at this point. Nobody really cares about that anymore. When I did the audiobook contracts for, and this is in 2012 or 2014 for Hidden Things, one of the things that Penguin jealously and will not relinquish in its contractual language is it very specifically calls out as a separate thing the fact that they own the rights to replication of the audio versions of the book on vinyl, on phonograph. And there's no way they will not let you drop that into any audio, like general verbiage for any audio format. Like, say the word any audio format instead of that. They want them specifically listed, and they specifically will not let go of vinyl because in their words, it might come back. And in the event that it comes back, all the stuff that they've done contracts for the last 20 years is protected for that vinyl redistribution of audio. So yeah, there's all kinds of clauses out there for the kind of stuff that's like, well, they never expected to have to pay for this. They're probably going to be a little bit grumpy about it until they, realize they actually get what they're paying for.
There is an on-world archaeological presence. So.
Oh yeah. Well,
we have.
There's
independent
certain
observer kind of stuff here too.
There's certain governmental clauses just with the Memesh and the way they represent things, and officially at least the way the government has worked out their various agreements with them, that certain kinds of fines can't just be corporate or can't just be government. There have to be scientific, in some cases medical involvement for any biological samples, for example. Like, haha, that's ever going to happen. Well, guess what? So although it's Starsmith's Guild, given to them in good faith by yours truly, they're not going to get all of it. And it's never going to be entirely private, or privatized for that matter, because certain elements of this mean the government has to be involved. For example, guns. All that kind of stuff. So if they've got guns, which apparently they do. Some of that you're kind of able to sort out a little bit. Like there's some tracking going, but assuming you guys are being very careful, you're kind of sussing out sort of what's happening in this, like in the command center, like from the doorway, with the exception of like carefully going in to retrieve the key, which is not something I'm going to make you roll for, because we've got the 6, we got in there, we got the thing.
Didn't die.
But yeah, and a lot of the stuff.
Or contract an awful, ancient virus.
And while a lot of stuff, there are quite a few panels, areas, and even a bit of even the resonance of the ship that goes dormant or powers down when the key is pulled up and out, which it does quite easily. There's a lot of other areas of even in the command CIC that do not. So it isn't like the whole thing is being powered by this thing or something like that. It's perhaps authorizing certain portions of it or whatever, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, assuming.
There is one thing that I want to do for academic jealousy.
Oh, okay. Selfie.
Um, no, actually,
Alien corpse
in
selfie.
academics,
Yes.
the one of the things that's really important is to be published, and being the first on the site means that even if I don't have a chance to spend years studying the site, I can still create a paper about the find and be the first to publish on the subject of the site.
Yes, which is awesome, and just yeah, spectacular. Um, Now I love all of this, but I'm not actually going to make anybody roll for any of this, honestly, because this was, I mean, just stick within game mechanics. This was the clock. You guys got the clock um, on the job without actually getting other clocks activated. Well, a couple of the clocks sort of halfway activated, but never moved any further forward.
I'm surprised that we didn't have a scene where we're barricaded and holding off stormtroopers as Kay submits his paper for peer review.
I just need to hit submit.
Actually, I'm waiting for the Starsmiths Guild to get down here with their first major party, and then they're gonna create the last 2 ticks on the Awake the Deep.
No.
And suddenly everything goes away.
Everything goes terribly wrong.
I was just picturing like a one on a roll, and you're like, "Goddamn Jenkins and his grammar obsession," and we were just like, "We're fucked."
Well, no,
actually we were rewatching Avatar last night, and we were on the one with the library that's mostly buried in the sand.
Yeah.
Sinking down into the sand. So that's been my thought this whole time. Is like I'm waiting for this to sink into the crust of the earth.
I'm staying with the library.
We have to run away. Yeah, exactly.
There's too much knowledge here. I'm staying with the library. Oh, okay, man.
I guess. Yeah, you notice they don't argue with them a lot.
It's the end of the Mummy movie where first the golden book is dropped, and they have, as the temple is slowly sinking into the sand, and they have to drag Evie away from where the book is. And then they're in the room with all the gold, and they have to drag her brother away.
Yep. We finally, I've mentioned in the past that Kaylee, we haven't been able to really watch The Mummy because she was scarred by it at an early age. And for Father's Day, and with the understanding that she would, without getting any grief whatsoever from us, be allowed to stare fixedly at her phone and scroll through Instagram whenever she wanted to, we did watch The Mummy.
Huzzah!
And so we achieved that. And really a lot of the really objectionable stuff. She left the room whenever the bugs were about to do bug-like things because she still remembers the bugs crawling underneath people's skin.
Yeah, that's fair.
The first 5 minutes of the movie are really kind of the worst. Once you're through that, it's really not that bad. And I said, you have to understand, I understand how this could be scary, but for me, this is a comedy action movie. Moving from joke to joke and, that kind of thing. And she was kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then we got to the scene that we all know and love. And it's actually 2 pieces of my favorite part of that movie where where O'Connell brings down Benny by hurling a chair at him without so much as looking at the chair first. The joke at the time, because this was like back when I think D&D 3.5 was out, was there was a feat you could get for fighters that was like improvised weapons, and it was like it doesn't matter what you grab, it does the same amount of damage. So yeah, you can know about it, and fighters are going to know a bunch of the weapons, but you could pick up anything, and it's going to be 1d6, and then when you level up, it's going to be 1d8. And I said, and the joke was at the time that O'Connell absolutely had that feat because there's no way he knows how to use a frickin' tulwar properly. But for him, picking up a chair and picking up the khopesh is pretty much the same thing. It's just a weapon, And I said, "You're about to see a piece of that." And as he picks up the chair, we were laughing so hard when he whipped it that we had to actually rewind because we missed the next hilarious thing in that same scene, the famous line that we have used so many times, "You brought a friend back from the desert, didn't you, Benny?" Which has been the recurring joke forever. And we were laughing so hard at the previous one that we missed the big line. Had to watch it again. And as it was playing the second time when he grabbed the chair, Kaylee, with a great amount of glee, shouts, "Yeet!" as he whips the chair across the room. And after that, and actually looking back at it retroactively through the previous parts of the movie, every time there's a lot of people being thrown around, especially later when Rick's fighting the mummy. So it became like this. From the moment that Rick tosses Benny over the edge of the boat, it's really, there's a lot of things being thrown that aren't originally designed to be thrown. And this became her joke. That was how she like got to the point where she was enjoying the movie, because she got to shout "yeet" whenever something got thrown, which happens a lot when Rick is fighting the mummy at the end. Anyway, sorry, went off a bit of a tangent there, useless tangent, but did finally manage to watch the mummy and enjoy it.
Tangent.
Plus, she starts to smack talk, the poor impulse control of like, the book goes skittering into the wire, and she's like, "Oh, come on." Then Evie stops it. She's like, "No, you are no. Just keep walking. What is wrong with you?" she says. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway. And there was some debate when they first walked into the room that was full of gold as to whether or not they would be allowed to touch anything. And Kate was like, "No. You're confusing this room with the room of treasure, with the cave of wonders from Aladdin, where you're not allowed to touch anything but the lamp. Here, you could grab whatever." She's like, "Yeah, but can you? Can you really? Safely? No." Okay, so we don't have, like I said, there's not rolls to make. The process goes about as you expect. And the impressive bits of this are really the care with which the handoff to the local Starsmiths Guild representative happens, because
I will make this
yes,
an alternate idea, because I came up with this partway through.
Okay,
So,
carry on.
which does everybody find more interesting? Big payday right now for handing all this off, or social job where we auction it off to some of the big powers?
I mean, I like that. That's also good. Because then you do it as a social job.
Yep.
A social
I'll leave
base.
it up to you guys
That
to figure.
I like that.
That is pretty exciting, and not something that
Yet.
the auction job. That's what it would be in Leverage, the auction job.
That was an episode, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I know, but at that point in time, it would have been actually ripping off the auction. In this case, you're actually running one. Although ripping off an auction frequently means pretending to be an auction when it comes to Leverage. So
that is fair.
That's kind of their move.
Bill, I haven't heard you pipe up. What do you think?
That sounds fine to me.
I like that idea. There's a lot of fun that we can have with that. So in this case, it'd be laying claim and then immediately contacting Memish government saying, for whatever portion of, there's a default finder's fee kind of thing, but also shoveling a bunch of that back to the Memish to officially acquire rights. So obviously the payoff's going to be smaller, with the potential for because you're you're siphoning a lot of it back into the.
I was going to say, we could
also has the potential of being bigger.
Yes.
We could, for the purpose of getting credit at the end of the job, pocket a whole bunch of stuff on our way out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm fine with there being with there being sort of a finder's fee that most of it gets forfeited in favor of, you know, to the highest bidder type stuff. And then you get like a whole kind, you've got academics, you know, vying for the biological specimens, and you've got the Starsmiths Guild, and you've got governmental, you got everybody. I mean, my wife will be the first person to tell you that the best part of the best news about having anything that you think might be valuable is when it turns into a bidding war. If you can just keep the war being symbolic rather than realistic. She doesn't say that
I
part.
was gonna say,
She doesn't
you
say
know,
that part,
and
but it is definitely relevant in this case.
I was gonna say also that, you know, Monster's in charge of security.
Okay, so let me look at payoff. So even given that, I don't think it's probably like a 2 cred job. That feels even unless the assumption is that, like, in order to keep this thing secure and keep your rights protected from like sort of immediate corporate and or governmental fuckery, there's a lot of a lot of money changing hands to make sure that the laws are actually observed equally for all parties involved. In that case, probably. So how do you guys feel? Something like that, where the immediate finder's fee, which would probably be pretty significant. I was thinking like 8 cred. Gets funneled back down to more like a 2 cred job because a ton of it is being funneled back into, I just need everybody to be treated fairly and legally. And ensuring that you bribe enough people to make sure that the law is the law.
And we don't disappear.
And you don't disappear. At least not
And,
immediately.
and we live to game another day and get the big payout in the next episode.
Yeah. Because potentially, I mean, as I said,
we're paying for a 2-part episode.
Yeah, the big, well, 3-part. The big part here, of course, being that, I mean, at that point in time, you're basically turning the next job into a 10 credit job, which is going to be complicated as all get out. At least a 10 credit job, potentially. So, does that sound about right? 8 down to, it pays out 2 at this point, just basically because everything else went to keeping this thing legit until, you need a floating platform up on the surface where the auction is going to take place, and also all this other kind of crap. We're only renting it, but that's fine because it's still going to cost an arm and a leg. An arm and
good with that.
An arm and a leg. No, anyway, it's terrible.
It will cost Harmon a leg.
Nervous laughter. Oh God. All right, so we should let us proceed through whatever portions of downtime we can with some alacrity then. So, Armin, if you would, or somebody, take up the sheet of the ship and add 2 cred to the. Does that keep us under any limits that we need to have under for the ship?
Yeah, we're fine.
Because I think you guys spent money on the ship just recently, right? Or rather, upgrading the crew.
Yeah, we spent money on upgrading the crew,
which left us with just like no cred right at that point. So now we're up to 2. So 2 sitting there as a little bit of mad money. We skipped upkeep last time. Are we skipping upkeep again?
Probably shouldn't.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with spending the money.
Yeah.
Especially with the prospect of a big payout.
And the need to possibly leave system, So
payout.
System quality plus crew quality, system quality. What is the system referring to?
Oh, the numbers on our system, so our hull, our engines.
Right. But we only added 1, so still dividing by 4 is still going to round down to just paying 1 for upkeep. So that should be fine. Even with the crew quality having gone up 1, I think that's right. System qualities all in on this thing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think I'm adding that up right. Engines is 2, hull is 2, crew is 1, and comms is 1. That's a total of 6. Divided by 4 is 1.5. Does that round up or down? I think it rounds down. Crew quality, actually, the example right here is engines 2, hull 2, weapons 1, so that's still 5 plus a crew quality of 1. The upkeep is therefore 1. 6 divided by 4 rounded down. So there you go. Same thing. Probably the next time you guys upgrade something, it's going to end up being rounding up. So there you go. So there's 1 cred for that. Paid. Don't have to worry about outcomes. Heat. On the one hand, quiet as a church mouse. On the other hand, you're announcing to the sector find of the century. But that's not likely to result in criminal stuff, so I'm not
There's a difference between heat and I'll say notoriety for.
Yeah, well, heat notoriety does generate heat, but let's look at this. So we'll start with 0, completely quiet, just completely quiet job. +1 heat for high profile target, because this is gotta at least say this is a big deal. Also, public use of artifacts. The whole bloody thing is like you found this thing. But I don't think. So 1 heat just from your face being on every freaking newscast for the next however many days, just from sheer like we know who you are and certain people that don't like you. I think that fits. Just from like you doing a bunch of crazy stuff. So that's I got to get back over to the other map now. What does that mean for? Oh, Holt only has 1 tick of heat anyway. I take it back. You got 6 heat now. So a little tick of heat there in Holt, as everybody seems to be talking about these independent guys who found the find of the century. Wanted level we don't need to worry about. Entanglements. Fine. Oops, wrong thing.
I think more of those come up next with.
Well, and the roll is pretty straightforward here, so I'm just rolling a straight 1 fortune die and looking at the little bloop. Hey. Oh, really? All right, fine. Do that one more time. That result is roll on the next most complicated table.
Uh-huh. Because, who knows? Mistaken identity.
All right, so let me just look at what this result here indicates. Let's see if I can. Okay. This may mean that you end up going another day, well, somebody might. Does anybody have cred just floating around? I don't remember. Do you guys have personal cred?
I didn't spend the adjustment.
I think I do.
Yeah, somebody's got some. So
I have at least a cred.
this is the result, and this is the way and I'm gonna throw some color on this. The result that I came up with for entanglements and stuff as a result of this job is interrogation, which the way it's put here is system officers rounding up one or more of the PCs to question them about crimes. And you guys are on the shady side of things anyway. How they manage to capture you. Either you pay them off with 2 cred, or they sweat it out of you, which means you're taking harm, and you tell them what they want to know, which adds more heat to the system. You can resist each of these consequences separately, or you can pay the cred. Now, what I'm actually coloring, so a lot of money changes hands. Everything's going to be on the up and up, and the entanglements are an unexpected and really, really intense level of resistance and, aggression through shell companies and through sock puppets towards you guys, where every bit of dirty laundry, bad connection, bad rumors about Armin, or any
The doctor.
any weird rumors that might have gone on about Kay, who the hell is this alien? Every piece of every possible way that you guys could be brought up and your claim invalidated due to stuff gets brought up in one gigantic tidal wave of crap, necessitating either a lot of sweating, a lot of difficulty, stress, harm, blah, 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 and some additional heat in the system as you hold on to everything, and some of you take some more, end up with some harm, and heat goes up in the system because even if you hold on to your claim, a bunch of dirty laundry is aired, or crap, we need to actually do more bribes to quiet all that shit down, which is too.
I was gonna say, since I didn't spend any of the adjustment, the 2 cred back pay, and it kind of fits my storyline, I can do that.
It's actually, so the 2 cred back pay is actually goes directly to your what's it called? To your stash.
But she does have some, doesn't she? Doesn't? I thought that was only like after beyond. Oh crap! I'm scrolling in the wrong window here. Hang on. I thought there was a thing. She doesn't have either cred or stash marked. And there's because everybody got like 2 cred from one of the jobs.
Mark that.
Yeah, I hadn't marked mine either, but I just put something in now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, because you can keep like 4 cred, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think.
I've never had cred, so
Yeah.
I mean, never had money, so I think, so I would still have whatever that.
Now I know
was.
Armin's been methodically shifting stuff into stash because he's trying to, I don't know, build up to buying a planet or something.
Well, and because he has benefits for doing that. So, but I'm happy to kind of be the one to do that.
I am legitimate
because it kind of fits with me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I am legitimately laughing at Armin's character sheet on this because he has got like a row and a half of his stash filled up.
Hey, that's how I actually have a good lifestyle.
Yeah, he's storing stuff away. I think most people. I feel like maybe I kind of vaguely through a haze. I'm kind of aware that Drifter might have spent one of his cred on something, but out of the 2 that he had, at some point. But I couldn't even tell you specifically what that would have been about either. So, anyway, hardly matters. Okay, so Cake and Quiet. Go ahead.
Mine, and then resolve it later if need be.
So more bribes, and Kay's like, you know what? Here, make this problem go away. So that's how I'm coloring the interrogation thing. Is just it's basically a massive smear campaign or an attempt at a smear campaign that you can sort of cut off before it gets ugly. You know, a
Oh,
lot of
I saw this back in work I was doing, X years ago on moon-based whatever.
oh, was it somebody finding
Yeah.
another stash like this? No, it was just a battle for tenure. I mean, you have no idea how ugly that gets. Um, so yeah, something definitely along those lines. So okay, so that was entanglement. Where am I at? Where did my book go? A lot of immediate resistance and attempting to keep you guys from messing with any of that stuff, and then we're into downtime activities. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here for a number of different reasons. Not least of which is some of the downtime activities, and I want to give people time to think about this. We'll start with this because some of the downtime activities, especially since we know exactly what the job's going to be next, are things that you can use to prep for that job, like acquire assets and stuff. Um, Special items, services, transports, things of that nature that you may want to use that for. So we can kind of do some thinking about that and uh, figure out what's next for all of that. Um, Figure out what the heist is because some of that heist, I mean, because I want to be able to. I did mention to Drifter the ability to go fast at some point in time. I feel like some of this is going to be, and then we concluded the auction, and before the hitman can arrive, we were already off planet, kind of thing.
They all
So
live happily ever after.
thinking of all the possible angles of how do you make this whole scam, this whole, it's not really a scam, but you make the whole thing come off
It's totally
smoothly.
a scam.
It's it's a scam. You think you're going to get the ship, and then the owners come back. So working down here, you have any desperate actions? You didn't technically address a tough challenge with deception or influence, but honestly, I'm giving you. You have to take a point for the a point of XP, Armin, for the just coming up with the. What if we auction this?
Oh yeah.
It's just lovely, and honestly, take a tick for the beliefs, drives, heritage, background because it really kind of expresses that. I
I'm
think.
taking 2.
Take two. There you go.
I was drugged today.
You were drugged today.
It worked.
It
Okay.
did work.
Okay. You addressed a tough challenge with charm or audacity. I'm gonna go with audacity, at least with the just going into the CIC with the key and all this other kind of stuff. Just a nice and a lot of heritage background here. We find out a lot of stuff about the archaeological like approach here. Some background about thoughts of. We just got to see you being archaeological, which is
Ooh,
I like. It's good stuff here. Drifter's getting shortchanged on a couple of these jobs here. Speed or flare? I'm still gonna go with. Oh, actually, this is fine because he's still gonna ding on this. Beliefs, drives, heritage, or background for Drifter, based on like sort of the ship background stuff and how this all ties into the whole like what the structure probably is, how it applies, all that kind of good stuff. So pleased to take a point of XP there that fills you up and gives you a full playbook advancement. As you see fit, there should be something to do with that coming up into the next thing. Monster did not punch anything, which means he gets no XP. No. Tough challenge with force or threats.
No.
But I'm still getting. There's still a point there for the beliefs, drives, heritage, or background because you continue to be committed to this. Following the trail that the keys lay out.
Collect the whole set.
Collect the whole set.
Yep.
Got to find them all and then do something horrifying with them. The open question, of course, being, how many comprises the set? Okay, so there you go. That's that. For that and Sun, I gotta look down here at the bottom of this. You addressed a tough challenge with insight or compassion. Compassion.
Insight.
Bedside manner. Bedside manner.
I figured that going with the surprise route would be the best and most effective way to ensure
That is,
Armin's well-being.
which also expresses your background, um, and you know,
It was
oh,
an act of compassion. I gave him the good stuff.
take a couple of
Oh,
ticks. I do like the I'll allow it. Yeah, take a couple of ticks there for the for that. It was a good. It was just generally a pretty good scene. So now, obviously there'll be some downtime stuff to sort out with regards. Doc can still actually get rid of your condition with. I don't even think it's a. Well, it's not even a question of a doctor roll. It's just a question like he makes the roll, but it's just
there's not a roll needed.
yeah, it's not a roll just to get rid of the level
Yeah,
ones.
because all your level 1 goes away no matter what.
It's just a matter of you using the advance on that.
To use the downtime action.
Yep. And probably, I think quite a few of you have some stress to relieve. So we'll dig into all that kind of stuff as we begin things next time. And then we'll roll into, you know, the auction. If I had said where I thought this was going to go with regards to dealing with this place, having a auction for it, not what I would have guessed. So kudos, because that's awesome. I think that's great. Anyway.
I always like a nice auction mission in the middle of a game. You would not believe how many games I've run where I've put that in there.
That's awesome. I love it.
So,
Anyway.
by the way, did we pick up the ship?
Did we?
Because I feel like we at least got the goals, drives, and inner conflict or essential nature of the crew.
Yes, I think. And honestly, at the end there, bolster your crew's reputation to develop a new one. So yeah, leave a tick there. So that gives us a ding on the ship as well to consider.
Right. Which everybody put 2 things into your stash.
We dinged.
What is that? What's that from?
Every time the ship levels up,
we
get payout to our stash.
Oh, well, which means that you should have done last time.
We should have got 4 total up or before this one.
Okay, so
which is what I put into the.
I don't think I knew that, and I probably good guess that nobody else.
It's literally the paragraph after the stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I missed it up until that point.
Okay, so group as a whole, please, all of you should have at this point in time 6 ticks of stuff in your stash, as just like wealth that's slowly accumulating in the background. At least 6. Armin would have a few more.
15.
Yeah. Whatever. It's just like the halfling thief in the party that gets put in charge of the treasure.
You know, as long as he keeps taking care of payroll.
Yep. Okay, so we have a level up for the ship, which we can also.
Did you take the cred off of mine yet, or shall I do that?
I did not. So the cred.
2 cred off.
Yeah, take the 2 cred off, but you have a total of 6 like in the stash, which.
The stash.
Is a whole different thing. All right, and with that, we'll wrap up. Whole bunch of stuff next time. It doesn't have to. I mean, everything I put out there is like, oh, we need a floating platform above the ocean. Not necessarily. I mean, if the location is concealed, you could do the auction in space. It doesn't matter. Whatever is cool. Lots of stuff to discuss. Honestly, throw it into it.
You can talk about it on the forums.
You can talk about it on the forums. Figure out what you want to do. All right, kiddos. I am gonna go and possibly take some aspirin because my headache's coming on. But thank you very much.
Allergies.
Quite entertaining and unexpected. My joke too. I was talking to my daughter because the kids have this really interesting. They talk about the game like I don't know. They have a really interesting perception. I suppose it's understandable because 2 of them at least come from a lot of D&D, and I don't think Kaylee necessarily has this picture, but she sort of plays along with it. Of how they perceive I prep, which is like intricate plotting, no, like extensive plotting both behind and ahead, and like intricate backstory already kind of laid out that they need to be careful not to step on. And I said, that's interesting that that's your perception of. She goes, well, it's not exactly my perception, but no, it's definitely how they kind of see things. How is it really? And I said, having one good idea a month and spending the rest of the time arguing with it in my head. That's my prep, basically. One good idea a month, spend the rest of the time arguing with it. It's also how I write. So, at least I'm consistent. Anyway. So this is good. I love this. I love the twists and turns of this thing. I will say, completely pulling aside Oz's little wizard's curtain and stuff, I did not know that was a fucking ship until you guys basically proved that it had to be. That was not my expectation going in there that was a ship. So, yay! We all learned stuff. I did not know what that was, but I didn't know that I had a different. Let's just say I had a different thing in mind. But ship became the obvious and only possible solution or explanation. So there you go. Anyway, so that is. I'm gonna put a pin in this. I think. There we go, and we.